I first went to the USSR in 1972, from here in Kabul, Afghanistan, then across the mountain ranges of Central Asia to Uzbekistan. I then continued northwards to West Siberia to Novosibirsk, where I was the only foreigner in this grey and chilly Soviet city of 1 million people. I caught a steam-driven train which took a week to cross Siberia, a distance of 5,700 kilometers. Large tanker trains of crude oil were being moved by rail. Temperatures dropped to minus 40 degrees. When I eventually arrived at the frozen Pacific coast, I boarded a Soviet ship at Nakodka. As we left the coast, the wind picked up, and I was glad of my Russian fur hat. We were hit by a big storm as we left the USSR. I went back to the USSR in 1990 by plane to visit the main oil-producing regions. The wells were in very poor state and needed substantial repairs and workovers. The drilling rigs were iced up in the minus 40-degree temperatures. Conditions for the rig workers were appalling, especially during the long nights. I had great respect for these tough Soviet oilmen who were paid only $7 a month. We signed agreements with Kominterneft way up north near the Arctic Circle. Our agreement contracted us to repair and recomplete oil wells across 4 oil fields. Next I had to raise some money, which was difficult as there was no previous history of this kind of thing within the USSR. Eventually we signed up with the Manai Corporation in Gata. The agreements were signed at Cliveden House, a location of the infamous Profumo affair, involving a British politician and a Soviet spy. We opened up a new office for our company, Quest Energy.
Good afternoon, Quest Energy. How may I help you?
We hired engineers experienced in Arctic conditions and interpreters familiar with the thousands of technical words in the oil industry. By now the USSR had broken up and we were dealing with a new Russia. We bought equipment from Europe, the USA and Canada. A drilling rig, trucks, pipe, anything that we could not get in Russia, and assembled it on our base in Hungary. It was all loaded on a dedicated train of 55 rail cars. We contracted 18 armed guards to travel on this train to prevent theft. They would only be paid on safe arrival at our base in Usinsk in Russia. In Usinsk, we opened up an office in this building. In the operating area, we built this camp, which was our forward base for storing and servicing equipment. There was no usable communication with the outside world, so we installed an Inmarsat satellite dish. Meetings were held around the clock to plan and manage our operations. Board meetings were often heated as we struggled to make progress and manage our shareholders' funds. We built a really outstanding team of Russians, Canadians, Americans, British, Australians and others. We brought in medical supplies and paramedics for the community. The operating area was to the north. The Russian equipment was in very bad shape, but we had to rebuild and repair as much as possible. Temperatures dropped to minus 57 degrees Fahrenheit. We had built and delivered a hybrid Canadian and Russian rig which was put into operation. We did 130 workovers on wells at depths of around 11,000 feet, replacing electric submersible pumps, clearing out debris and wax, removing junk metal, and stimulating the wells. The environment was also cleaned up and our wells painted green.
This is Quest's first
well here worked over, and just been completed in September 1992. We built production to 7,000 barrels of oil per day. After this great success against the odds, we started off another project in the tundra further north to develop another oil field. Conditions were even colder, and we headed up to the Arctic Ocean coast, where an offshore terminal was being planned. The other option was to pipe the oil south, and this is what was done. This marked the end of a very exciting and challenging decade for me in Arctic Russia.